You're listening to Australia's national youth radio station, Triple J. For more info, go to triplej.net.au.
Thanks to the intervention of the ABC Board and the generous support of the Macquarie Bank, Triple J reluctantly presents the following 2 hours of unbiased, fair and balanced coverage of the week's topical issues. Would you please be upstanding for the national anthem? And your hosts, Stirling Addison LLH and guest, as we present Restoring the Balance.
Good evening and welcome to Restoring the Balance. I'm Stirling Addison. Joining me tonight, Spencer Penrose. It's a big show. We will speak with three people tonight. And in these interviews, we will talk about the myth of recycling. We will talk about the myth of Australian workplace agreements reducing workers' entitlements. And we will talk about the myth of David Hicks's innocence. We will also tackle the waste of taxpayers' money, namely by Richard Kingsmill, who is currently, at the conclusion of his show, on a flight to Melbourne to attend the Logies, paid for by you, the taxpayer. I use you to the Triple J audience in the singular, there being only one taxpayer. Kingsmill will head down to Melbourne like some love-struck teenage schoolgirl to hang backstage with his mentor and friend, Richard Wilkins, the grasshopper to his sensei, if you will. Above all, though, Kingsmill hopes to penetrate the security cordon around Avril Lavigne, who is attending this year, to get his photo taken with her, the one person he regards as the saviour of punk. His proof? Well, Kingsmill excitedly and repeatedly points out to me that Lavigne frequently ignores the advice of her record label and wears her own clothes to photo shoots. Yes, Kingsmill, you, Lavigne, and Richard Wilkins, cutting the corrupt establishment down to size. This is Restoring the Balance. Stay tuned for the next 2 hours. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Well, thank you so much, Stirling. And angels on your body, and nice to see you again after our brief catch-up last night at the Christian Television Association's version of the Logies.
Yes.
It's the night of nights in the Christian church, the Christies. And wasn't that red carpet special?
Yes.
Because it was lovely to see Penny again.
Yes.
What was she wearing?
Not much.
Was it Canterbury Bulldog? Once again, is that what
it was underneath the gown,
I
yes.
see, yes.
She was late. She'd been visiting some friends who do play for the Bulldogs.
Right.
She'd been there all weekend doing God knows what, and obviously thrown on the dress at the last minute.
Wonderful.
And
she looked lovely.
She did.
But basically she attended with you and then pretty much left you to your own devices.
Yes. So we'll be speaking about Penny later on. But yes, she certainly enjoyed... she got into the spirit of the occasion very much. I went past the toilets at one stage and heard her screaming, Jesus Christ, many times.
Well, indeed, it's the only awards ceremony where people thank God more than the Grammys. It's famous for that.
Yes.
Songs of Praise, once again, the big winner, Hillsong TV. Good to see them doing well as well.
Well, speaking of women, Spencer, it has been a big weekend on the topic of women in politics, the rough and tumble of politics. And I'll take this opportunity to apologise on behalf of all Triple J listeners to Senator Bill Heffernan, who was fairly rounded upon for simply pointing out, and we think fairly on this show, that in the case of Julia Gillard, a woman who has not had children, is scarcely fit to lead the country. And I make this point to you, Spencer. This is a woman, and we are supposed to take her seriously on the issue of work choices and industrial relations when unemployment in her ovaries is running at 100%.
It's a fair point. I think, speaking of Heffernan, I think that maybe it was taken out of context. I think maybe... The media cut him off. He was paying her a compliment, calling her a baroness.
Yes.
And then suddenly the guillotine of the editing stick came down, and once again, you see what the ABC have done.
I think that Heffernan speaks not only for all Australians, but for the 0.31% of his electorate who actually voted for him. But I wonder, as I said to Robbie Buck when I was ambushed by him last week, and I'll repeat this again, this challenge to the ALP, if the ALP will show the balls, the cojones, if they will make it ALP policy in their first term as government to knock Julia up, to have Julia pregnant.
Let's see that, comrades. Let's see some of that fresh thinking and some fresh actions to go along with the fresh thinking. Maybe Kevin, he's here to help. He could give it a go.
Yes, and I wonder who will stick the hand up, or whether or not it's already been decided if the influential New South Wales right has indeed been tagged for the job.
Possibly. Who knows?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I said this on Robbie Buck's program, and that would have been on Friday, and I've yet had no response from anybody in the ALP as to who's been tapped for that particular job. But we spoke about this at length, Spencer, as to the unsuitability of women. For the rough and tumble of politics. Women, you could say, bred by God to handle the rough and tumble of a B-Day and Sassoon clearance sale.
Yes, but...
Or a Stella McCartney launch. But...
Politics is a man's game. It certainly is. I mean, I was surprised at the word choice from Heffernan, Baron. I would have gone with, infertile or unfruitful. What's wrong with saying her reproductive organs are arid badlands, wherein the human male milt cannot prosper? Something like that. I mean, that would be that's possibly how I would put it.
He is somewhat more economical with his words than I guess others are apt to be. Does it worry you as a Family First member that she would hope to lead a family of 20 million. Now, the only other person we know who regularly leads a family of 20 million is your average Irish Catholic, that being about how big their families are.
Yeah.
Spencer, would you worry that this person would have her hand on the button, the nuclear trigger, as it were?
Well, she's hardly got the scoreboard to point to, does she?
Yes.
And she certainly has a lot of work to do in that regard. I mean, a woman without children is an unfulfilled woman.
Yes.
A woman working at probably about 40% of her capacity as a human being breathing the same air as us. And women in politics, I mean, someone who threw her fascinator into the ring in South Australia, actually, in the safe Liberal seat of Boothby, Nicole Corns.
Yes, I saw it. I ambushed on the news by a hungry media pack and was lost for words as to ALP policy on a number of issues.
Look, just to explain Nicole Corns, she is the wife of former AFL team Adelaide Crows coach and player for Glenelg Tigers. I think he was captain of Glenelg during the Second World War, Graham Corns. And Nicole Corns having a go for Labor in that seat.
Yes.
But she's got more things. She's a mother, and she's a law student.
Yes.
And that's pretty much it. But on paper, she is overqualified to take on the seat of Boothby.
Yes.
And it's not something that she's taken lightly. She got the call on Friday, called the news conference on Sunday.
Yes.
Here I am. I'm presenting myself for the seat of Boothby as the as the Labor candidate. And great stuff. It seems to be just another example of Labor's
contempt,
cult of personality politics that they seem to like.
Yes.
I mean, not just footballers' wives, not just in seats, but also maybe cabinet positions. Stephanie McIntosh. When times get tough on environmental policy, you go to Steph to find out the news.
Yes.
New IR policy. Hello, Joe Bailey. What do you think?
Joe Bailey, yes.
Got some problems with the defence portfolio? Amanda Flynn, obviously.
Yes.
And Candice Fowson as Attorney General.
Yes.
I mean, really,
there's a lineup.
The mind wanders.
Yes, it does. Well, we return to the whole issue of women and whether or not they should even be involved in politics. This is our talkback for the evening. 1300 055536, 1300 055536. Should women at all be involved in politics? And I say this to you, Spencer. We are at war at the moment. There is an ongoing war on terror, and as such, our nation needs the unemotional detachment of a man at the wheel of state.
Yes.
At the wheel of the good ship of state. Women, I think you'll agree, are apt to succumb to instinctual kindness and nurturing. And this is obviously what brought about the undoing of Britain under Margaret Thatcher.
True. And then I believe that's the only case of female head of state, isn't it? That I can recall.
Well, the only one in the civilised world.
That's right.
We are, of course, excluding New Zealand and Helen Clark from...
Well, I rolled up to a function once, a black tie function. We were wearing the same thing. It was most embarrassing.
Yes. So there is that, the smothering the country with kindness. There also, any woman is prey to the monthly demon. And, of course, we would not want nuclear weapons. If that were the case, if Penny is anything to go by.
That's right. There's all kinds of female disorders to consider. Yes,
but that is not to say that women themselves don't have some sort of role to play in the political process. And I must at this point acknowledge Chris McDivitt, who's the president of the Liberal Party.
Right.
Not the parliamentary. She's not in the parliamentary party. We have quarantined her from any real decision making. But as such, she is the president of the Liberal Party, and has brought a much needed emphasis in the party, a much needed emphasis on shoes and Jane Austen film adaptations,
as you would expect.
And for that, we are so much the richer as a party. But in terms of real decision making, should women be involved?
Probably not.
We probably think not.
But please, challenge us.
1300 0555 36. Should women be involved in politics at all? The SMS number 1975 555. Women are no doubt currently texting each other, bitching about the frocks worn at the Logies. So
that's the thing.
This will no doubt be a male-only discussion, as politics normally is. Call us, 1300 0555 36. Restoring the Balance, Triple J, you're with Spencer, you're with Stirling. We discussed Senator Bill Heffernan's comments earlier this week that a woman who was elected not to have children, a woman who was elected not to fulfil her biological destiny, should not be entrusted with the keys of the lodge.
That's a fair point. It's a fair point. Not even Kirribilli.
Yes.
And so you need someone. How can someone take care of the Australian family if they have not created their own themselves?
I couldn't have said it better. So we're asking a talkback this evening, 1300 0555 36. Do women belong in politics? And we have Brad from Williamstown.
Good evening, gents.
Good evening, Brad.
Just a little surprised that a upstanding blue-blood like yourself would forget about Queen Elizabeth I, Stirling.
Yes, well, that's hardly politics. The whole thing about the monarchy is they're deliberately removed from the political process. They sit as a figurehead and do not soil their fingers, if you will, with the ongoing running of state. So a royal is hardly a politician.
Well, is it not proof that a barren female, as you like to describe it, could take a ruling position?
Well, we'd take it on a barren female by barren female basis.
Okay.
I think that's my point on that.
And what should be remembered, of course, is that Elizabeth I's children were indeed the Commonwealth.
Yes.
We are all her children.
Of all colours and creeds and races.
So really she had no need.
She did, of course, play favourites. Of course, the Caucasians were her favourite, as they would be.
Yeah.
We have Chloe from Melbourne.
Yes, hi. I was just thinking the way that you're talking about the women like that, I just figured a lot of, maybe, if there's a fair amount of males out there who can't look after their own families and you expect them to look after others and you think that they're right for the position. But it's not just that. The way that you started saying about females is, obviously you've got something against them, so I just figured that it will be great for you when Labor wins the election so that you can finally hook up with the love of your life, John Howard.
Yes,
and it'll be a recognised union and you'll be very happy together, I'm sure.
I don't believe in gay marriage, so it won't happen. Two things are impossible there. The union of two men legally and the election of a Labor government at the end of this year.
Well, you're going to definitely be in for a shock. Thanks a lot, guys.
Hey, thanks for calling and get back to Grey's Anatomy. Let's say hello to Lydia from the Sunshine Coast. Hi, Lydia.
Hello, Lydia.
Oh, you're Lydia.
You're Lydia. No,
hello.
Sorry, there must be a shoe sale on somewhere. You've lost your mind.
We're getting along well.
Lydia,
you're... What a silly girl. Doesn't she know it's Melanie you love?
Well, Melanie is married and with child. So
I'm sorry.
Discussion of my affections towards her or any other person who is not Penny is hardly appropriate. Lydia, did you want to weigh into the subject of women of your gender in politics?
Girls.
Absolutely. Of course we have a role in politics.
Yes.
Who is going to pick the tie to go with the suit? Who is going to make the gin and tonic at the end of the day?
Yes.
Who is going to design the menu for those all-important dinners with their parliamentarian friends?
Yes.
Of course women have a role.
Yes. But obviously, you know the scope of your ambition and it is well set.
Well, we know what we're good at.
Yes. The power behind the throne, if you will.
And no man can do those things, so of course we're going to shine in our role.
I'll correct you there, Lydia. No man should do those things.
No, of course not. It's our domain.
Yes.
Of course, how about Sterling's earlier point about the 7 days each month when there are problems in the lower house, Lydia?
Look, that's what the Tylenol's there for. We can cope with that. We're women, we're tough, we're stoic.
It's men who must cope with it.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that one.
Well, I do. I do. Ask Penny. Thank you, Lydia. Lydia, are you engaged? Are you married? Are you spoken?
I'm married. I'm actually out at the all-night IGA getting some milk because we've run out at home, and I feel a bit like I've let down my household responsibilities.
And
I've popped out at night to get some milk.
Lydia, was there even a discussion as to whose job it was to jump in the car, still wearing, I hope, high heels?
And they're pink.
Yes.
No discussion at all. I just picked up the keys and off I went.
Off you went. A
Wonderful.
woman who drives.
Doing my job.
A woman who drives.
After my own heart.
Yes. Thank you, Lydia.
Okay, good night, boys.
Good night.
Good night.
There are sane women out there.
And it's nice of them, one of them to give us a call tonight.
If
Lydia, lovely Lydia.
There was an insane woman before her who hung up on us.
What's her issue? What's her problem?
Well, if anything points to...
Have we said anything offensive?
I don't think so.
We've said a whole bunch of things that are true, but not offensive.
I would hate to be the man in her life. If you'd like to weigh in on this particular topic, should women be in politics? 1300 0555 36 is the number to call.
The calls overwhelmingly so far say no. 72% already. Is that right? 72%. So...
Richard Kingsmill here with the new music you're hearing first on Triple J. Queens of the Stone Age with 666. Do It Again by the Chemical Brothers.
Oh my God, what have I done? Do it again. All I wanted was a little fun. Do it again. Got a brain like bubblegum. Do it again. Blowing up my brain.
And Xavier Rudd with Better People.
Like to the hungry again. Hope to the needy again. Laugh to a baby again. Care for free.
New music, that's Triple J.
Restoring the balance. Global warming hysteria ends here.
We just heard from Kingsmill, Spencer, there. Many people will not know this, but he, using an ABC work computer, barraged Jennifer Hawkins with emails posing as a 15-year-old schoolboy in the hope that she would accompany him to the Logies.
Is that right?
This is the sort of employee we have to put up with here at the ABC. Of course, one who has undergone the forced indoctrination that all ABC employees must undergo. Lee Sales has undergone such a political realignment, if you will. She is the ABC's national security correspondent. She's visited Guantanamo Bay, unfortunately not as an inmate. She worked for the ABC in Washington. She has become a rabid pro-Al-Qaeda apologist for David Hicks.
That's right.
To the point that she has written a hate-filled and life-filled book.
Available in bargain bins everywhere.
Yes. In just in time for Mother's Day, it would appear. If your mother wants a one-eyed a tract celebrating, it's not a tract. It's more a hagiography of David Hicks. She joins us now. Detainee 002, the case of David Hicks. Lee Sales.
Guys, I'm so flattered by that introduction. It's everything I ever hoped for as an ABC reporter.
Well, you won't hear it anywhere else but here. Lee Sales, why do you hate the cause of freedom?
Look, I don't hate the cause of freedom. I love the cause of freedom, and that's why I've written this book, to try to expose exactly what has happened over the past 5 years in the David Hicks case, and to actually get back into the middle ground, because we've had these two versions of the David Hicks story. We've had the poor David Hicks, he's a little victim, and he was just woke up one day and found himself in an Al-Qaeda guest house, and, you know...
Propaganda.
Yes.
Exactly.
The 7:30 report version, we call that.
And then we have, you know, the other side, which is, well, who cares? He should be locked up and the key should be thrown away. The truth, like so many things, lies in the middle.
No, nothing lies in the... No, the truth is on the right.
That's right.
As I think you'll find.
Can I ask you, Lee, Major Michael Morey, the most dangerous man walking the face of the earth today?
Indeed. He's very dangerous, particularly if you're near him in his office, because he tends to chew tobacco and he likes to spit it in the bin. You just need to make sure you've got a little bit of distance between yourself and Major Morey.
So?
Yeah.
Yes. What then, in your opinion, your rabidly left-wing, pro-communist, internationale singing opinion, should we, the population of Australia, what should we feel in our hearts for David Hicks, a man who picked up a Katyusha rocket launcher to use against us and the freedoms we stand for?
Look, I think if you did a straw poll in Australia, I suspect you wouldn't find much sympathy for David Hicks. I think most Australians are pretty pragmatic and they would say, look, this guy was in Afghanistan. The facts are not in dispute. He was there. He was training with Al-Qaeda. It's beyond a doubt. We know that's true.
Yes.
But is this the sort of process we want an Australian citizen to go through? Because at the end of the day, even if David Hicks was completely innocent, he still would have faced this very, very flawed legal process and this 5-year delay in getting a hearing. And that's why we need to be still asking questions about what's gone on.
The flawed legal process, was that the one that the American journalist Daniel Pearl underwent at the hands of his Al-Qaeda captors?
That was also a very flawed, horrible situation. This one was different, but flawed in its own way, basically. The Americans just delayed and delayed in 2002 and 2003. They told people hearings were going to happen. Then they didn't happen. Basically, people were held.
They're fighting the war on terror.
Indeed. And this is a big part of the war on terror. And basically, they never offered any evidence as to who was actually at Guantanamo other than to say we have to trust that these people are the worst of the worst. We then found out a lot of them were not the worst of the worst. In fact, the Americans have now released half the people that were originally held at Guantanamo Bay. So it's about making sure as citizens that we hold our governments accountable and we, make sure the war on terror is fought in the right way, in the way that fits with our society's values and beliefs.
And I love some of the departures you've taken with this book as well, little flights of fancy and little bits of fiction and what have you, details of quote-unquote torture and allegations of this sort and this nature. But Hicks himself has actually denied that this has ever taken place.
Well, David Hicks, it's interesting the torture issue with David Hicks because David Hicks has alleged in the past that he was tortured while held in US custody. But when he pleaded guilty in March, he said that he agreed to drop those allegations. What I've been able to discover is that when Hicks arrived at Guantanamo Bay, he basically spilled everything he knew from the moment he got there. Yes. American sources have said to me that they never had to use any techniques on David Hicks at Guantanamo Bay because he just spilled everything. And they said he would be a total liability on any real terrorism operation because he can't keep his mouth shut.
Yes.
An Australian source said anyone that showed up there with a hamburger, CIA, FBI, whoever, David Hicks would spill his guts,
Sing
basically.
like a canary.
He would, absolutely. But having said that, while there wasn't that aspect of physical abuse that we've come to associate with Guantanamo Bay, the interrogations with strobe lighting or the menacing dogs or whatever, he was held for long periods of time in solitary confinement, and we know from expert evidence that is very detrimental.
Edifying.
Detrimental.
Good for the soul.
Detrimental. It gives him a little bit of time to focus on what he's done wrong, perhaps.
What he's done wrong, and there's plenty to focus on.
And he had plenty of time, 16 months, I think, to focus on that.
Yes.
In your opinion, if David Hicks ever did tell his story, should he receive money for that, do you think?
Look, the whole issue of Hicks telling his story is quite interesting because you have to remember at the end of the day, David Hicks is a guy with a grade 9 level of education. So people that know Hicks have said to me they think he'll find it hard to write a book, for example. He's going to have a ghostwriter to work with him. Now, how's that going to work? Is the ghostwriter going to be allowed to get money and Hicks can't get money? Certainly on one side there's an argument that says, well, David Hicks is entitled to, have free speech like we all are, and he's entitled to make a living if he has to spend 12 months writing a book. The other side, of course, is that a lot of people would find it pretty repugnant to think that David Hicks is able to profit from these sorts of activities. Having said that, Chopper Read certainly did when he wrote his book about his experiences.
It all went to charity.
Nettie Smith?
Yes.
Is that right? It all went to charity?
Of sorts. Yes, of sorts. He's a colourful identity and a good friend of this show.
Yes.
Thank you. Will he be tortured, do you think, when he arrives back? Tortured with an appearance on Dancing with the Stars.
Well, or Big Brother.
Yes.
I mean, imagine David Hicks in the Big Brother house.
Yes.
That could be quite interesting.
Yes.
I think it... I don't think he'll be tortured in an Australian prison. He's only going to be in there for about 7 months from when he gets back, because he got the 9-month sentence, and he's going to have served almost 2 months in the US before he arrives home. So he'll be back on the streets. You boys better be careful.
I'm asking you to speculate, Lee, without becoming insanely pro-Leninist here. But the next Australian who is caught up in Al-Qaeda's ongoing war of terror against us who value freedom and liberty, can they expect similar treatment to Hicks? Can they expect a 5-year incarceration as well?
Well, do you think that would be enough?
No. I'll put it to you bluntly. Do you think 5 years is enough for what David Hicks has done?
Well, John Walker Lind, who was an American who was picked up on the battlefield in Afghanistan...
Yes, and not an artist on the playlist here at Triple J.
No.
He got 20 years for vaguely similar behaviour to David Hicks, but the political environment was quite different when that sentence was imposed. And in fact, Walker Lind's parents, having seen what Hicks has got, have now made some noises in the US and said, well, we want what David Hicks got, basically.
Why have we failed in Australia? Why have we, especially Conservatives, failed to create a similar environment that would have seen Hicks get 20 years?
Well, because he wasn't brought back to Australia for a trial. He was left in the hands of this very flawed legal system that dragged it out and out and out and out. And by the time he finally got a hearing, the system had been, quite discredited. The Supreme Court had already overturned it once. The evidence was dated and old, and everyone at that point, including our government, just needed it sorted out and out the door. And so they had to find a way to get agreement with both sides, and this was what they came up with.
And can I ask you a question? This is a personal question, and you can choose to answer it or not. But do you have a thing for David Hicks?
Yes.
I most certainly do not have a thing for David Hicks. And after 5 years reporting the story, I've got to say my husband's pretty keen for David Hicks to be out of our marriage.
Yes. Okay. I would disagree. I'd say the book fairly sizzles with unresolved tension, references to rocket launches.
There are some sex scenes, so anyone wanting a raunchy read, get out and buy this book immediately.
Wonderful, wonderful.
You are on Triple J, and this is the last question we'll ask. Doubtless a percentage of the Triple J audience will get to view Guantanamo from the inside. They being that radicalised. It's only a matter of time before they join Al-Qaeda, thinking it's some rock festival.
And throw a net over a big day out.
Yes. From your personal point of view, what is that humanitarian facility like?
I've been there twice. It's certainly not pleasant, and it's not the sort of place for your listeners that they would like to spend any time. It's really dry, hideous, Spartan. Just the conditions are very, very basic. I walked into one of the cells, Camp Echo, in which Hicks was held for a period of time. It was just a very small cement box about the size of... Actually, it was I was going to say a king-size bed, but it was actually a bit bigger than that. Yes. But just with a little slit of glass along the wall that let a bit of light in, but that you couldn't see out. And, it was pretty harsh.
It sounds like the Triple J studio.
Yes. Well, it sends the right message, surely, to as we call them, the bad guys. These are people who use children as suicide bombers. Should we be harsher on them?
Certainly people who use children as suicide bombers, we should be very harsh on them, but we have to make sure we have the right people and evidence against these people, and that part of the whole issue with the war on terror is... It's got the military side of it, and then it's got a public diplomacy side of it, which is you don't want to be breeding more suicide bombers. So you have to be trying to win hearts and minds as well as waging your military campaign. Part of the Hearts and Minds campaign is making sure that the United States and its allies are seen to be talking the talk and walking the walk. So if we're standing and talking about human rights and dignity and freedom, then we need to make sure we're acting in ways that promotes those values.
Or at least denying the media access.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That to me would be the first step, I would say.
It's an interesting point. And just another personal question. Tell me about Cuba. The beaches, the drinks, the people.
I got to swim in Guantanamo Bay.
Is that right?
I had to swim, yeah. There's the American soldiers who are based at Guantanamo. I've met some great guys, really, really good people down there.
Our friends and allies who are Americans. Yeah. The great guys, yes, of course.
And some of them, supported Guantanamo Bay. Some of them did not support Guantanamo Bay. They had the same variety of opinions you would find in the normal community, but they just happened to be American soldiers stationed at Guantanamo Bay.
Defending freedom.
Exactly. And these guys, it's a pretty boring posting because, frankly, not much happens because it's pretty locked down. There's not a great deal of action. It's not like Iraq or somewhere where you're seeing lots of activity. And there's really not very much to do at all at Guantanamo Bay, but it has good diving, good water sports
shopping?
stuff.
Good shopping?
And not good shopping at all. Although you can get a Guantanamo snow dome.
Is that so?
Yes, you can indeed. No signs of little mini terrorists or anything in there, just palm trees and American flags, basically.
Should make them available on the ABC website.
I'm sure they will one day. Yeah, they will be. But what a place to have a prison. If you're going to choose to be a prisoner anywhere, go to the #1 tourist capital of the world.
Yes.
Cuba.
Well, we've learned much from Hogan's Heroes of indulging prisoners of war, which is, I guess, why they're called enemy combatants. We've learned our lesson from that fine show. The book is called Detainee 002. It is an insanely Trotskyist slanted harangue of the Howard government and the Bush administration's, you could say, feather-gloved treatment of David Hicks.
Get through it if you can. The case of David Hicks, the Taney 002.
By Lee Sales. Lee of the ABC Commentariat. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
Right.
We're talking women in politics.
Yes, off the back of Heffernan's comments.
Misquoted.
Yeah, it was a misquote about Julia Gillard being quote-unquote barren.
Yes.
Is that correct? Barren. Was
and that effectively invalidating her from any office.
Is she a real woman if she has not had kids yet?
She, of course, is. And another thing about her, she's obviously, like everybody in the LP, in the total thrall of the ACTU, and of course receives orders from Combay and friends. She ardently believes in a union, but obviously not the union between a woman and a man.
Same with Maxine McHugh.
Yes.
Where are her kids?
Yes. Where's the ring on the finger? And where is the lifelong commitment before her God of fidelity?
Bronwyn Bishop had kids and wonderfully successful children as well.
Yes.
And we're still seeing the results of that on Channel 10 all the time, pretty much every night, as a matter of fact.
And I wonder how many ships have crashed upon the rocks of her affections, if you will.
Yeah.
He laughs knowingly, having, in my younger days, sent off fan mail after fan mail letter to Bronwyn and as yet have received no reply, but she is, of course, very busy.
It's unfortunate.
Who wouldn't? John from Tasmania wants to weigh into the topic of whether or not women should be in politics.
Good evening. How are you going?
John, where do you stand on the issue?
Oh, look, I'd just like to congratulate you, gents, this evening for hitting the nail on the head. But first and foremost, are you both correctly enrolled to vote?
Yes.
Yes, we have heard about that. A lot of young people apparently not enrolled at the moment.
Well, this is the thing. I have a number of heavy-set friends down here that, I can convince to go around and educate the masses on the correct way to read your how to vote card when it's attached to a sock full of sand.
Yes.
The problem is with teaching young people how to vote is that they generally vote for the wrong people.
Yes.
My technique works better in this regard, and this brings me to my point that women in politics don't have the stomach to go out there and do what needs to be done to convince the masses that the right way is the right way.
Well, it's a father v daddy, or daddy v mummy role. And,
clearly.
And we expect kindness and nurturing from our mother, but at the same time we'll also push the boundaries. We wouldn't dare try the same thing with a stern but still loving father.
Of course not.
With a steel-cap jackboot.
Yes.
Applied to the throat, of course. Now, your other side of the woman is that if she does have the stomach for these sorts of necessary tasks,
yes,
that often she's like a lioness protecting her pack, and clearly she loses all control and forgets the understanding of the term proportional response.
Yes, John.
Point, John.
It's refreshing to know that somebody so well-opinioned is living in Tasmania, and no doubt... John, I would that I could give away a prize, and in your case it would be shares to Guns in Tasmania. Guns, of course, who do an outstanding job logging old-growth forests in Tasmania and are darlings of the share market because their share price has quadrupled so much.
What a wonderful job they do. And John, in Tasmania, are there any risk of any female politicians there at the moment with this upcoming election?
Oh, I believe we have a couple. I think you're very well acquainted with our lovely Christine Mill, but that's no problem for us. We're well supported by the spectacularly coiffed hair of Mark Baker.
Yes, and good job, and we wish all well who sail upon him. Thank you, John. Neil from Brisbane, we did predict, Spencer, that when we said do women belong in politics, we would get a mainly male listenership calling in. Men are able to think about this topic rationally.
That's right. And, of course, a lot of women probably not listening tonight, as we have worked out. There's an awards ceremony on.
Yes.
They like to see who's wearing what.
There are frocks to be bitched about. There are shoes to be criticised. There is makeup to be... mocked.
Hot water bottles to be made in the kitchen.
Yes. There are, of course, a proportion of the audience who, as we said earlier, are prey to the monthly demon. Neil, however, is not. Good evening, Neil.
Stirling, how are you?
Very well. Neil, do women...
Oh, sorry, Sterling, you continue.
Well, do women belong in the political process?
Well, Sterling, I think we need look no further than our neighbours, New Zealand. Helen Clark. I mean, the population of New Zealand has voted with its feet in the queue at Centrelink. Yes, good point. She's also robbed the country of any air defence capability. Mm-hmm. She's destroyed the Air Force there, leaving it as a woman, leaving fair Dame New Zealand prone like a naked sunbather to any pervert with ill intent to subjugate. The next Jackson film. Yes,
that's right. Yeah, she took credit for the Lord of the Rings films. I mean,
which the majority of the New Zealand Defence Force took part in.
Yes, that's right. Yes, especially that second one. I wouldn't be taking credit for that.
The biggest tactical exercise they've conducted in the last 15 years.
Yes. What to say? So you've got a loony lefty running the country, which can be invaded at any stage. Was there any nation on earth who actually wanted to? Actually, that is not ever going to happen, though, is it?
No.
You make a good point, Neil. You make a good point. Helen Clark needs a sterner hand at home from her husband.
That's right.
A sterner hand.
And longer hair. It would be nice if she, just did herself up a little bit for us.
She is a woman possessed of a surfeit of unbecoming handsomeness.
That's true.
Yes.
Unbecoming handsomeness. I'll have to remember that.
Leo from Darwin.
Yes.
Leo, women with their hands on the nuclear trigger, women in the halls of power, do they belong there?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Explain why, Leo.
Absolutely not.
From Darwin?
Yes, Darwin. Yes, they've not single-handedly, together they've stuffed Darwin. They've stuffed the Northern Territory.
Yes. How so?
Well, they took away they changed our speed laws.
Yes.
And we've now got a speed restriction of 130 kilometres an hour.
Yes.
And of course it was unlimited before, wasn't it?
It was, we had high-performance cars coming in from all over the world to test their cars on our roads, and just because two ladies, I don't even know if they should be allowed to drive cars.
Yes.
Just because they can't do it, they're punishing the rest of us.
And what would happen was, as they were driving, as it reached maximum speed, the baby on board sticker would fall off the back. That's what would happen in Darwin, and that's why they had such a big problem with it.
I'd probably have to agree on that.
The stuffed teddy bears would bounce all around the dashboard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Leo, was it a case of women suspecting that there were men on the roads having too good a time, and that just being more than they could bear?
I think they just wanted to destroy the economy because, now people, obviously they're not going to go out to visit as many distant places.
Yes.
And, they're not, and obviously the shops aren't going to sell high-performance cars or motorbikes and things of that nature because, there's no need for them.
Yes.
How fast can a Ford Fiesta go anyway?
Well, it depends. If the woman, as I said earlier, is running late for a lipstick sale, we are talking a serious land speed record.
That's true. If Stella McCartney was selling some stuff.
Yes, or if she gets an SMS saying, I have a picture of Colin Firth topless at my house, come quickly.
Well, I'd be pretty excited about that one too, as a matter of fact. It's a bad example.
Yes, okay. Accepted. Leo, sanity will prevail. A white male will be restored to power in the Northern Territory, will realise the idiocy of his predecessors and hopefully will re-establish an unlimited speed limit on the roads of the Northern Territory.
Thank you very much for your call.
We can but hope. This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. Speaking of Nordic and driving, Spencer, Sweden doesn't just produce cars driven by lower middle-class professionals who believe a European car is a credible status symbol.
Is that so? Because they do that awfully well.
They do. They think, let's see, I've come from a middle to lower middle-class suburb. I've moved away from my parents towards the inner city. I drive a Saab now. This will stun everybody at our school reunion. Saabs, of course, being eminently affordable, a little too affordable. But Sweden has produced some radical environmental thinking, especially by somebody called Soren Norby.
Yes.
Now, he's advocating a reversal of decades-old wisdom, and he's arguing that burning cardboard, plastic and food leftovers is better for the environment and the economy than recycling. Once again, a radical approach advocated by those who are not under the yoke of the lefto-fascistic greenies, such as Greenpeace.
I like the cut of his jib.
Yes.
I mean, this is really flying in the face of the climate change distraction from the loony left.
Yes.
Is it not?
Well, he's also saying that glass mixed with household waste improved the quality of slag residue and could be used for landfill.
How is Penny? How is she going at the moment?
She's very well, although I don't see the connection. Okay. But she is very well and committed to recycling. Committed. And is no doubt listening at home if she were not tonight discussing the garden at our marital home with landscape gardeners.
Ooh.
Why it takes 3 days, why she's not come home in that time, I don't know. He joins us, though. This is Soren Norby, the Swedish environmentalist with this radical plan, joins us on the phone from Sweden. Good evening, Soren, and thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, yeah, well, you're welcome.
Soren, what reaction have you had to your plan that recycling is in fact a bad thing to be doing for the environment?
Oh, well, I don't say it's a bad thing, but I say we must use the most profitable ways to handle waste, garbage, and to protect the environment. Just now, the global warming and climate change is the biggest threat facing mankind, and every one of us is responsible for counteractions.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because the Australian backyard was almost a prerequisite that you would have an incinerator in the backyard.
Yes.
And then, of course, the incinerator is no longer there in the traditional Australian backyard. How exactly should the world facilitate this new idea of yours, Soren?
Oh, well, those ideas are emanating from the circumstances in Sweden. We have a very effective collection of household garbage, and we have a mainstream going not to old dumps, but to modern, environmentally adopted plants for producing hot water and electricity from the energy in household refuse. And then this mainstream would be used for such recyclable fractions which are not so valuable as raw material, as energy raw material, as fuel in those plants, modern plants we have.
Now, Soren, has this plan been initiated in Sweden?
Oh, we a group of experienced environmentalists discussed those questions a few years ago, and we noticed that we must stress the discussion in Sweden by doing this paper article we did. And I suppose we have stimulated the discussion in Sweden very much in the right direction. That I mean then the optimal, the socio-economic best way in handling refuse garbage from the households.
And how has this proposal been received by the sanitation industry? Because, well, rather wrongly, recycling is a big business now, Soren.
Oh, well, recycling is a big business and will be a big business. We are discussing some fractions of the household refuse, which today is not profitably recycled. And we have experienced in Sweden concerning, for instance, non-rigid plastics, which means that most of the source separated and collected soft plastic is going to those burning plants.
Yes.
And that means we must have much better collecting systems.
So how does it, I mean, it's still the same. So I mean, still going to have to ask my cleaner to separate the aluminiums from the bottles and the newspapers. I mean, I'm still going to have to ask Carol, my cleaner, to do all that for me. Is that exactly how that works, Soren?
Yeah. Newspapers, there is, since many years in Sweden, it's a good economy in separating and recycling paper from newspapers and other such paper. And people in Sweden want to recycle glass, or even if it is not quite profitable. The demand for return glass is not too high. The value in the market is not high enough. But people want to separate it, and in the systems we have,
people naturally want to practice apartheid.
Yeah.
In the separating the good from the bad, if you will. They are naturally inclined. It's an honest urge. I wanted to ask you, Soren, radical hippies on the left who hate the planet, who believe they know what's best for the planet, how have they reacted to your plan? Have they reacted with hatred?
No, I don't think so. I suppose that if they are discussing those items with me and other with the same opinion, they will say so. Oh, why didn't people told us this before?
Yes.
I have met that reaction.
Yes.
I'm saying, for instance, soft plastic, non-rigid plastic, is a good way to use oil until you burn it.
Yes.
And as far as we use oil as for direct burning, you must discuss, can we use it in some other way first and then burn it? And
yes.
That's what we say. We must test other methods. And dirty plastic and dirty paper is better as fuel and than returnable resource.
Yes, dirty paper, such as the Sydney Morning Herald, which is full of lies, such as Paul Barry's biography of Alan Jones,
such as How to Vote Labour card.
How to Vote Labour cards, dirty paper. Dirty paper.
Jonestown.
Yes. Dirty paper.
Dirty, filthy,
you have
soiled
your right
paper.
You have your right to express your opinion. That's a basic thing in a democracy.
Yes.
And then you mustn't burn papers because of the content of what's printed in it.
Well,
that was done, for instance, in Germany during the 30s, but not.
Let's not have a black armband view of that particular time in history. That's let's just move on from that. Soren, is there any chance you would be out in Australia telling us your very sensible views on burning rather than recycling?
No, I say so. You must look upon all the environmental problems. You must offensive solve the right methods, the right steering instruments. I used to say like this, we have gained our technical and material progress and standard at the price of pollution of the environment and waste of finite resources. One step forward and two step back.
Yes.
The environment liabilities must be paid back rapidly and with interest.
Yes, rapidly and with interest, which is why we should would take any literature from Greenpeace and burn it in the inner core of a nuclear reactor.
In Soren's new system here.
Yes.
I like that idea.
Yes. Soren Norby, thank you so much for joining us on the phone from Sweden.
Yeah. Nice to talk to you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much for your time. This is Restoring the Balance, 2 hours of spin-free conservative comment, an oasis at the ABC.
Oh, it is. So we are festooning the airwaves with moderate thought. Old-fashioned common sense.
Yes, with the filthiest five-letter word ever heard on the ABC, truth. Truth.
What happened to that?
Yes, Spencer and Stirling with you. Earlier we spoke about Senator Bill Heffernan's comments about Julia Gillard's fitness for office. She has no children, therefore should she be trusted with the leadership of the country? He thinks not. We happen to endorse that particular controversial opinion. Of course, the left liberal media went insane over the very suggestion. We, of course, are a reaction to that, and we support and endorse the hard-working Queensland Senator's comments on that.
Well, they put their own spin on it.
Yes.
Little tricks like quoting him directly and what have you.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
I mean, that's dirty. That's dirty stuff. In an election year.
Does the media know any other way?
That's punching below the belt.
We have Bill from Victor Harbor, a fine town in South Australia, a state which has given the Liberal Party many fine servants, Nick Minchin, Amanda Vanstone, to name just two.
I own a block of flats in Victor Harbor, so I'd love to...
Excellent.
Is this Bill O'Reilly?
Hello.
No,
Hello.
It's not. Okay,
Bill.
I just thought it might have been Bill O'Reilly from the Victor Harbor O'Reillys.
Yes. Bill,
Yes.
Women in politics, what's your particular position on that?
Well, I have
Robert Hill is another fine South Australian.
He is.
I have a very neutral view there, actually. What I wanted to know was, what is your opinion about Senator Amanda Vanstone and Senator Bronwyn Bishop as having been in quite powerful positions in the Liberal Party?
Yes.
As compared to the potential bottle redhead that could be coming into the government.
Pauline Hanson.
No, I'm referring to a woman you mentioned earlier.
Julia Gillard.
That's right. That's definitely bottle red.
Yes. Another South Australian there, Bill.
Not real red, is it?
Well, I haven't checked.
I don't know.
So there might be other issues there that are worth discussing.
Does the ALP need to come clean on Julia Gillard's hairstyle?
Yes, well, hairstyles are a very important issue in the female population.
What about Christopher Pine's hairstyle?
And have a look at Bronwyn Bishop. Always made sure she had a perfect hairstyle.
She was immaculately groomed.
Immaculate.
It was a B-52.
It was top order stuff.
Yes.
It was so strong you could actually land a B-52 on there.
Yes.
But here from Victor Harbor, we're by the sea and we have fresh air clearing our minds regularly.
Yes.
And we need to be clear on these issues about who runs the country and who's got the power.
Well, you mentioned two fine servants of the government and the Liberal Party, Bronwyn Bishop and Amanda Vanstone. Of course, Amanda Vanstone, of course, could be pregnant. You just wouldn't know. But if she has had kids, so much the better. She, of course, is representing us in Italy.
Yeah. Yes, I hear.
Yes.
A fine country.
Well,
they tend to toss out governments at the ready.
At the rate of one a year almost since the end of the war.
Oh, they change governments like Labor changed their leaders.
Yes.
But see, that's the beauty of democracy, isn't it?
Well, Italian style, yes.
One of them.
And if you haven't got a democracy, I mean, your country could be looking a little bit red, couldn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Very important.
Yes.
So you're probably wondering which angle I'm coming from here.
Yes. Yes, well, I'm wondering if the hair dye has seeped through your skull, Bill.
It's not a hair dye question. It's the Victor Harbor fresh air clearing the mind.
Yes. Well, it's done that. In fact, it's gone so far as actually blowing your brain out your ear, I'd say. But thanks for calling, Bill. Victor Harbor is so much the better for your presence there. Yes.
What about Christopher Pine's hair? Because you look, it really is. I mean, he's a wonderful man.
Yes.
And once again, another fine South Australian.
Yes.
But he is Alexander Mark II. The hair, it's a cold 2-minute noodle. Is the design.
The hair itself,
because hair does maketh the man.
Well, the hair was disendorsed for pre-selection by the Liberal Party Council of that particular state, but was reinstalled. It's a fine hairstyle. As you say, hair maketh the man. And cometh the hour, cometh the hairstyle.
Once again, he has been misquoted in the Liberal media, saying that he didn't want his portfolio of ageing. Yes. And I'd just like to put the record straight, because Chris is a personal friend of mine, as I am sure he's a friend of yours as well, and he's devouring that. He loves that role. The aging portfolio.
It is, as we call it in the government, the gravy-filled chalice.
Yes.
If you will.
It's a sweet chair.
And who would not sup from it, we say.
It is one of the more delicious plums in the cabinet.
To move along, I wanted to talk to you, Spencer.
Please.
Of course, Family First has a broad and very well-managed, ethically managed share portfolio. Did you have shares in Qantas?
No, I did not, unfortunately. As I mentioned, I just have the blocks of flats in Victor Harbor and also Apollo Bay, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
Seaside communities. But nothing in Qantas. I did hear about the news the takeover bid went sour, is that right?
Yes, the deal on behalf of Australian or airline partners of Australia, in conjunction with the Macquarie Bank, it would have been an Australian-led takeover of the Australian icon that is Qantas. It has been scuppered at the last minute. Of course, Democracy in Action, the review panel overseeing the merger and acquisition and the takeover of this company, has disallowed the last-minute bid to get Australian Airline Partners of Australia over the 50% they needed. They needed 50% of the Qantas shares.
What happened? What went wrong?
There were, and anybody would understand this, there were concerns as to the fully franked dividend being paid by the company. Those who had Qantas shares did not want to release them because the profit forecast for the company was so strong, it being in such a dominant market position. They simply looked at their shares and said, why would I release them? The share price, I think, about $5.45 not being enough to tempt them. And I think our thoughts at the moment should go for anybody running a hedge fund.
Right.
And I, on behalf of all Triple J listeners, and in particular Richard Kingsmill, who was crestfallen over this, he was urging on the Airline Partners of Australia. He being a huge fan, he's always nurtured the dream to work for a managed fund, as he did before he got into radio.
Yeah, he just sort of got caught up in radio.
Yes.
So he actually hasn't pursued his true dream.
Yes, but he will be back there. But I wanted to, on behalf of all Triple J listeners, assure our friends in America, especially our friends in the American financial community, that we are a nation are not hostile to foreign ownership.
Of course not.
And indeed not so under Treasurer Peter Costello. We have fully embraced foreign ownership and have done so at a greater rate than virtually any other the government. So our credentials in that regard are beyond reproach.
Indeed.
And and Spencer, I will look and see what effect this statement by me has had on the stock market tomorrow, because I want to calm fears and allay concerns. We are not hostile.
No.
To foreign ownership.
Good for you. You're doing good work.
Yes.
Is it also true that they missed some sort of deadline?
They did miss a deadline, yes, of 7 p.m, I think, on Friday.
So what, they missed the appointment?
Yes.
Were the APA on a Jetstar flight or something?
Yes.
Did they get caught up for a few days?
Yes.
In the wrong city?
Perhaps they went to Tullamarine instead of... they went to Avalon instead of Tullamarine, as they do in Victoria.
Just with the contract in hand. I'm supposed to be there by now.
Yes.
I think that's what happened.
Yes, well, Jetstar enforcing a similar hardline policy.
The answer, foreign ownership.
Yes.
Let's get it happening. Open arms, Australia.
Open arms. We'd like to see a bit of foreign ownership here at Triple J.
I'd like that. Nickelodeon, maybe.
Yes.
Could come in and purchase. We could have the Triple J Awards and just slime all the time.
Yes.
I'd like to see some slime.
Yes.
Wouldn't you?
Canane is up to his neck in it. That's his practice in trade, if you will. He's... I'll shut up. Restoring the balance. Now, I wanted to say this to you, Spencer. When the revolution in workplace relations occurred last year, the Prime Minister promised that no worker would be worse off. Now, there are changes that have been announced this week to work choices.
That's right.
And as a result, workers are even less worse off, I wanted to say. Now, this is indeed a great day for market-driven labour flexibility, but will we see the breakfast show here at Triple J be doing an outside broadcast from Joe Hockey's office to celebrate?
No, you would never see that.
No, that won't happen.
That's not right on.
No. And there won't be any Hottest 100 John Howard policy corrections featuring number 3, the scrapping of the index petrol excise, or number 2, the review of parliamentary super, or number 1, the GST exemption off fresh food.
See, but that would be wonderful on Australia Day.
Yes.
And what a way to celebrate this great country.
But
Pop on the barbecue, Hottest 100.
Yes, exactly. But it's been very much in the news. John Howard has seen minor problems and decided to fix it. And we thought we'd speak to somebody at the coalface, and pun intended.
Great.
Because he is Christopher Platt, the General Manager for Workplace Policy of the Australian Mines and Metals Association. They are no fan of Labor's stance on Australian workplace agreements. He joins us on the phone now. Good evening, Christopher. Thank you for joining us.
Well, good evening, Spencer and Sterling. And it's great to be in a company of a couple of fellow right-wing dirtbags like yourself.
Yes, yes. Well, you have coal under your fingertips, of course. Coal, which earns the money that buys the dope, that goes into the bongs, that goes into the lungs of the Triple J listener, who's now lolling about the floor trying to make sense of the very practical things you're about to say, Christopher.
Well, certainly coal is a strong part of our business, but we've also got the metalliferous sector, or the hard rock sector, for those that find it hard to spell metalliferous,
yes.
and also the oil and gas sector. And our organisation represents the biggest and the brightest of Australia's capitalists who exports Australia's latent wealth to the world.
Yes, and is driving the quality of life we all enjoy.
Well, I was told earlier in the week that McDonald's can't get people to run their stores in Western Australia because they're all off with picks and shovels in the mines.
Now, speaking of that, Australian workplace agreements have boomed in WA, which coincidentally is a state that Labor cannot possibly hope to carry in any upcoming election. What has been your experience of workplace agreements?
Well, in our industry, workplace agreements cover approximately 80% of the hard rock mining workforce, particularly in Western Australia.
Yes.
But we should remember that these aren't a product of work choices. Formerly, they're a product of Peter Reith's work in 1996, but they've actually been in place for 20 years. We've had individual arrangements with our employees, directly with our employees, and we haven't had to worry about third parties interfering with us getting on with the business.
Yes, and union disruption and days lost due to strike action. What percentage are we talking about now, as opposed to, say, before these were instituted?
Well, it's less than one day lost per 1,000 employees, and in fact, gone are the disputes that used to typify mining, such as a dispute over the flavours of the ice cream in the canteen in the Pilbara in the 1980s.
Yes.
We were just talking about foreign ownership on the air a few minutes ago, Christopher. And now, do you feel that Labor's proposals may indeed scare off some overseas buyers?
Well, certainly. What one of the risks is the companies are investing a stack of money. Julia herself was saying that we're looking at $80 billion in Western Australia alone, and the companies have choices. They've got choices whether they put their money into Australia, which is relatively stable political democracy, or whether they put it somewhere else in Asia or in South America, where they might feel they get a better bang for their buck and less interference from the trade union movement.
Yes. Should they be locked up?
Well, I don't think we should lock all of the trade union movement up. Just a few, I think, just to show an example. But
yes,
troublemakers.
Really, what we want is to be able to have direct relationships with our employees. The trade union movement haven't done a great job of running their own business. From a high of I think 57% union membership, we're down to 15, and I don't think they're the right people to hand the keys over to run our business.
Yes, or the government, which is effectively the ALP in power. Yes.
But Greg Combay, rolled out the red carpet.
Well, you have to be a member of a union to be in the ALP, so as I understand, although I think they made a few exceptions in South Australia recently. But certainly we don't want to hand the keys to them. We think it's going pretty well at the moment. We're bringing in $110 billion last year, $114 next year, and there's a few taxes and some royalties come out of that are keeping people like the Western Australian government very happy. Yes,
and I, of course, apologise for any taxation the mining industry does have to pay. It is an unendurable impost.
Well, it's an impost that we think we need to bear. We've got a social conscience, and we invest a lot of money in the rural towns and in our employees, and we do have to give some back.
I heard something the other day on the ABC. It was about a mine having to stop work because they were disturbing 3 little animals that lived in that area. Do you know much of that?
I don't know that particular instance, but I was working on a construction site for a sand mine in Hamilton, in Victoria last year, and we had complaints that we were keeping the sheep awake at night.
Yes.
Well, these things are the size of amoebas.
Yes.
Yeah, well, amoebas are pretty small, and I suppose what it does mean that there'll be a PhD student who'll have a grant to go and study that. But
it's probably a lesbian grant.
Well,
would be that probably send along a lesbian quick smart to sort that out.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'll join Bill Heffernan in getting my mouth gaffer tape for the next few months, so I won't buy into that one.
Yes, good idea. Christopher, I meant to talk to you about big business this week licking its wounds after the premenstrual mauling it got from Julia Gillard. Nobody ever sticks up for big business. Nobody was there to cop the punch for big business. I wonder if big business are actually okay, if they have actually recovered.
Well, look, I got to tell you, we were afraid. We were very afraid, but we were able to marshal our forces and come out and present a credible argument. And what surprises me is that papers like The Age and the Herald Sun are actually pushing for choice for employees, choice as to whether or not they join a union, choice as to whether or not they want collective agreements or the capacity to recognise their true individual worth. Yes, choice is the cornerstone of freedom. Of democracy. And of democracy, of course. Big business, would they like to applaud the Prime Minister's fine-tuning of work choices and applaud the greater amount of compliance required and applaud the hiring of even more bureaucrats to oversee the no disadvantage test? Well, I think that at the big end of town, I think I accept that there will be some small red tape, but I think it's a price to pay. Again, it's our social conscience coming to the fore, and we don't want there to be a perception that people will be worse off under work choices. So we're all for it. We accept that there will be some additional work for lawyers and IR practitioners, but we're happy to cope with that.
Yes.
Do you understand this Labor proposal? What's it called? Workfare, isn't it? Is it fair work?
It is. Well, I think it is workfare. I think it's the other one is fair work, and I must admit it will be a fair bit of work for unionists if it does come in. But
can you wrap your head around it?
Oh, I think we can. Essentially, what it means is if you're on $75,000, then you're regarded as being rich, and you don't need the protections of the system. And if you're under $75,000, and unless you're in one of those disadvantaged groups, then someone's going to be looking after you, making sure that you're not doing what you shouldn't be.
No, it sounds very artsy-fartsy.
Yes, it sounds very Russia 1917.
Pinko.
Yes. Christopher, I meant to ask you, let's, heaven forbid, the Labor Party is elected to power tomorrow. It's a pledge to tear up AWAs. What effectively, and in legal terms, does that mean for somebody on an AWA at the moment?
Well, what that'll mean, in relation to people on the AWA, we're uncertain. Certainly there's been a few lines trotted out. One of them is essentially that you will have a choice as to whether or not you stay on your AWA or not. So if you think that you've maximised your bargaining position, you'll probably stay where you are. If you reckon your employer's a bit vulnerable, well, you'll go for another hit and try and renegotiate something better.
Yes.
And for us, what that does is that puts up our commercial operations at risk. And again, that's another reason why the investment dollars might flow from Australia to another country.
So we risk a flight of foreign capital.
Possibly, as in people are making big decisions, $80 billion worth of investment decisions, and they don't make it lightly. And what they want is they want security, and you don't have security when the rules keep on changing, when that pendulum swings from the far right potentially back to the far left, and that's something that we want to avoid. We want the pendulum to be just resting in the middle, sliding side to side, so we know where we're going.
I'd quite happily lean on it to plant it firmly to the right myself.
Yeah.
Nail it there. Araldite it, personally.
Yeah, well, look, there's some great super glues out on the market now, and then perhaps we should avail ourselves of them. But what we're really seeking is a system there where we can go forward. Now, I must admit, I get the impression that the ALP is slowly leaning on that pendulum and pushing it over to the right. They've now recognised that maybe AWAs weren't such a bad thing after all, and they recognise that industrial action is inconsistent with pulling out that wealth out of Australia's heartland.
Yes, well said, Christopher. Just out of interest, you're, of course, the General Manager for Workplace Policy of the Australian Mines and Metals Association. Are you on an AWA yourself?
No, I'm not, and the reason I'm not is because I'm not covered by an inflexible award that prevents me and my employer organising our business to suit. So, effectively, I can work as many hours as I like, and I get paid relatively well.
Yes.
But the people at the other end of the spectrum who are covered by awards, well, they couldn't arrange to have the school fees for the kiddies paid by the company because they'd be getting paid potentially less than the award.
Yes.
If the award says you can't work on Sundays, then it's going to be pretty hard for us to run a 7-day operation. In fact, in one industry, there's an award that says you have to have mushy peas for tea. And I can tell you, if we did that, our mines wouldn't be working at all.
Yes, award, grimly ironic, the term award. It seems quite the opposite.
Well, it's really just a means of bringing everyone else down to the lowest common denominator, isn't it?
Yes. Christopher Platt, again, thank you for joining us.
A pleasure, sir.
No, and thank you very much. I look forward to listening to your program again.
Thank you, Christopher. At last, some lucidity on the issue of industrial relations.
Pearls of wisdom.
Yes, pearls or diamonds of wisdom, more apt perhaps for the mining industry.
It's true.
This is Restoring the Balance on Triple J. The indulgence continues till the very end. Bjork there.
No, she's just been unearthed because she sounds pretty raw.
Yes.
Is that true?
I
guess she has some potential.
If anything points to the danger of women having unemployed ovaries, it is that slab of nonsense, that slab of Nordic nonsense from Bjork.
An album of wind chimes.
For God's sake, woman, get married and get into a kitchen. Get out of a studio. You're creating a disaster in there. For God's sake, that was unforgivable. What Conservatives have to put up with the ABC is bad enough.
I'm all for new talent, and I'm guessing that's the first song she's written. So we'll see what she has in the future. I'm going to keep an open mind, but At the moment, no, not impressive. It's a poor debut.
Judging by that, she'll be making her husband dumplings in no time, and well she would, because that was just ridiculous. I've got the same tingle, Spencer, that I get every year around this time.
Oh, yeah.
It's pre-budget tingles.
Oh, it's an exciting week, isn't it?
Yes.
It's very exciting.
Yes, and
we're getting little morsels of information.
Yes.
Just drifting through, just bleeding into the news. And I mean, it's all fun stuff.
One of which will be an $8,000 grant from the government for childcare.
Yeah.
Of course, many Triple J listeners have children, none in wedlock.
Mm-hmm.
The most excited you will ever see a Triple J listener is when his toddler gets her first tattoo.
Right.
And that's a cause for much celebration.
So are they saying, how much is it? Is it $4,000 per child?
Well, it's going to be brought forward. They're talking about $8,000 in the one payment.
Wow.
Not a rebate, a payment.
So Triple J listeners have the chance here to earn upwards of $80,000.
That is correct, yes,
really?
doing the normal maths. And Peter Costello has pledged that he will make Australian workplaces the most women-friendly in the world by means of this childcare bonus.
That's disquieting.
Well, it's actually good news for the vast majority of women in Australia who work in such fields as promotions modelling or foxy boxing or topless car washes. Which has just been opened in Queensland.
Yes. This is very exciting news. No, that's forward thinking. I mean, unfortunately, is this going to be given to low-income families?
Well, yes, it will, yes.
I'm not sure about that.
It's the nudge they need, I think, to vote coalition. And look, it certainly beats the economic plan that Labor have. I read the ALP economic policy, and this is what they plan to do. In their first year, they have committed to a budget surplus of $75 million. You might think a razor gang will go in and cut the fat from government expenditure. Not so. Spencer, this is how the ALP plans to make $75 million in its first year in office. It is contingent on the government handing over $15 million to a Nigerian man whose relative has money in a safety box. This is how ludicrous it is. Has money in a safety box in Spain. And once the money is liberated from the bank, the ALP, the government, will then, via email, claim its share of $75 million.
It's a bold plan. It sounds familiar. And also, I believe they can get some cut price deals on stiffy tablets. Is that correct with this whole process?
Herbal Viagra, yes.
That's the one.
Yes, but I'm sure you're the same, and we certainly in my office, the legal office where I work, every year have a budget wish list tipping competition of what we hope that the Treasurer will announce on Tuesday night.
Like a pool?
Well, it is a pool, and these are the three I've bidded for. I hope that he aligns more closely the decline in value deductions for mining, quarrying and prospecting rights with other depreciating assets.
Oh, fingers crossed.
I hope there's a change in the tax treatment of boating expenses from denial of deductions to quarantining of deductions. And on behalf of all Triple J listeners, I certainly hope for this one, the relaxation of the eligibility requirements for concessional taxation treatment for non-residents investing in venture capital limited partnerships, provide taxation exemption for Australian residents and non-residents investing in a new investment vehicle for early-stage venture capital activities.
I think everyone's hoping on that one. I think that's a common... I mean, pretty much I think that would be the first thing that he brings up.
Yes.
Some interesting thoughts there.
So we are hoping then, and this is a talkback that we're going to do at the moment, 1300 055536. We had such a fine response to should women be in politics, and the overwhelming majority was no. As we said, Spencer, they should stick to promotions model of foxy boxing
and the topless car washing.
Yes, or like Janet Albrechtsen, the... on the ABC board, a woman of unapproachable handsomeness, perhaps the most handsome female conservative since Margaret Thatcher, and many a young schoolboy, myself included, would have had her poster on their walls.
It'd be a nice calendar. The Conservative Women calendar.
Good luck getting that printed by liberal media, the left-wing media.
Maybe we could talk to Rupert about that.
Yes, well, that's a matter for another time. But we are asking on 1300 055536 what it would take for John Howard and Peter Costello, the lethal duo, economic management in Australia. What would it take for them to effectively buy your vote?
I'd like to see more money devoted to not just the soccer mums, but the theatre sports mums.
Yes.
Because they are a forgotten demographic in our society. I mean, they're there every Saturday at the performances, and they're also there every Wednesday at practice as well.
Yes.
And it's not a popular sport.
Well, true, but if they're as deserving of federal money as any soccer mum, I would imagine, or any private school.
I mean, I have a background in theatre sports, obviously, with my performances and what have you at the Paradise Assembly of God Christian Community Church.
Well, there's always an audience there.
Yeah, and they've just been forgotten for too long now.
Yes.
So I would like to see a helping hand given to them. More money devoted to churches such as ours, the McChurches, they're commonly called in the media, which I didn't like. The Herald Sun article today. I'd like to see a bigger parking lot. We need more parking space.
Yes.
Things like that. I would like to see several things. I would like to see a new Nautilus machine at the gym.
Yes.
I'd like to see an extra lane added to the pool.
Yes.
I'd like to see the sauna made even bigger.
For Jesus, yes.
Yes, it's all for Jesus.
Yes.
Of course it's all for Jesus.
Yes. What about an alternative being offered in schools, as it is in America, an alternative to the theory of evolution? I stress theory.
Yeah.
The theory of evolution. Would you like to see a parallel curriculum enforced in schools, state schools, enforcing or at least exposing children to intelligent design?
I would very much like to see that. At the moment, it's just being left up to parents.
Yeah.
In those who have kids going to state schools, it's up to parents to teach their kids the truth, and that's not really the way.
Yes.
That's not really the way it should be, as a matter of fact.
Well, any state school, I'm sure you'd agree, is a factory of atheism. Yes,
isn't it though?
We would ask you though on 1300 055536 what does the government need to do to effectively buy? It's a crass way of putting it, but we will for the sake of argument.
They don't need to buy mine.
Yes.
And they don't need to buy yours, I'm sure.
I gave mine freely years ago.
But perhaps your mind is drifting. And
Never.
No.
Never.
But perhaps the listener's mind.
Perhaps the listeners.
What's the carrot that you want the government to dangle in front of you?
Exactly. Should they abolish GST on Byron Bay Bud? Should inputs into the processing of hash be GST exempt?
Interesting.
Putting it the way Triple J listeners would understand.
The first 5 callers have just dropped off because we've just stolen their thunder. That's what they're going to say.
Yes.
Sterling.
Restoring the Balance, 1300 055536. Call in.
Restoring the Balance on Triple J. Your taxes barely at work.
We're running a dual-headed talkback topic tonight. Earlier this evening we asked, do women belong in the rough and tumble of politics? We asked, assassin B-Day jean sale. Yes, women can take that rough and tumble. A Stella McCartney sale. Yes, women are physically evolved to handle that kind of rough and tumble.
A Love My Way marathon.
Yes.
A chocolate fest.
Or Buffy the Vampire Slayer box set.
They'd be into that.
Can women, however, handle the knife play, if you will, in the halls of power of Canberra? We, of course, a topic discussed or sparked by Bill Heffernan about Julia Gillard. Not having a family means she's unfit for leadership. We tend to agree. Nathan from Sydney wants to weigh in on this particular topic. The other topic, of course, can the coalition buy your vote? We'll get to that in a second. Nathan, what do you think of women in politics?
Yes, good evening, gents. First, I'd like to compliment you on the show.
Thank you.
Just been listening on the way back from my weekend down at Junee.
Yes.
Right down in the region of Bill Heffernan, or the Hef, as we like to call him.
As of course, a huge majority of voters, of course, voted for him in the upper house.
Of course.
A huge majority in the upper house, of course, being something in the order of 6%.
Yeah, for Hassel.
But that's enough.
Hassel-Hef.
Yes.
That's right. That's right.
Nathan, you are well represented by the Hef, as we call him.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of women in politics?
Oh, look, I think that politics should strictly be the domain of gentlemen, such as yourself. I think it's obvious, actually, given the language chosen by our Federation fathers.
Yes, or men.
That's right. We have the member for Bennelong.
Yes.
And it's a very, very large member, I understand.
Yes, aptly named, yes.
That's right. We also have elections, which sounds suspiciously masculine.
Yes.
And we also have polls as well, which also has a masculine influence. So I think there's a definite masculine undertone there.
Although, on the other side, we do have a House of Parliament. Women, of course, are happiest when confined to a house, that being their domestic domain. That's on the other side of the argument, Nathan.
Well, point well made, Sterling.
The only problem is with female members of the House, it takes them twice as long to leave the House.
That's true.
At the end of question time.
That is true.
Have I got my handbag? Have I got my lipstick?
I'm not ready yet.
Yes. If I'm leaving with Penny, have I got protection?
Yeah.
What for? We're in a chase courtship. I'm not that much of a celebrity that my life is in danger, if that's protection you mean. Anyway.
I was going to mention the whip in reference to Penny.
That's another thing too that we have in politics that I would argue is gender neutral.
I mean, some people enjoy it.
Yes.
Some people like brandishing them.
Yes. Rich from Grafton. Rich, we're also talking this evening about what the government can do to buy your vote effectively in the upcoming budget to be announced on Tuesday.
Yep.
Rich, did you want to weigh into this particular matter?
I certainly do.
Yes?
Well, basically, we're just coming back from a gig. We just got ripped, bloody $250 by a publican for a pre-confirmed gig, and it's just got me pissed off about the whole vibe. And what I want to do is I want to be able to claim back all of my input into trying to get this frigging band off the ground against the other income that I'm able to generate through other sources. Basically, legitimately claim it back, cross-claim it across. So if I go and, work 40 hours a week in a cafe just so I can go down and play to, 10 drunk people to get ripped off by a publican, I want to be able to claim for all the shit in between, not only be able to claim against the profit that I never ever make anyways.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And every time I go to the accountant, he's like, look, man, you're really going to have to take that up with Howard.
Yes.
So that's, if they switch it around, I mean, not for everyone. I mean, I know why it's in place. It's to stop massive businesses, going, look, I can't pay any taxes because I've got all this expense over here. But if you're doing something, culture, arts related, I just want a bit of reprieve on it.
Yeah, so I guess the problem is, Rich, you'd only get an exemption if anybody listened to your band. And that doesn't seem likely at any juncture anytime soon. If you're really annoyed about the publican, write a song about it.
You know what you get with things like arts grants and money spent on art?
Homosexuality.
And a new Björk album.
Yes.
That's what you get.
You also get people who vote Labour in the artistic communities.
But mostly homosexuality, you're right.
Yes.
Homosexuality, we come back to that.
Rich, we're very sorry about the $250 that you lost, but again... if you're any good, people would pay to see you.
That's right.
That's the market. That's called the market. That's called the interaction of supply and demand.
Keep trying. Keep in there. You never know. You could get unearthed.
Yes. Look, if your music is bad, and it sounds like it is, it's only a matter of time before you'll be Album of the Week on Triple J.
That's right.
Keep the faith. Keep the faith. Sam from Christmas Island. Sam.
Good evening.
Sam, we're running two topics tonight, how the government can buy your vote, women in politics. Which do you choose?
I'd like to go in both, because I think that if women in politics should, if preferably, be a good-looking sort...
Yes.
And they could buy my vote by flying up to Christmas Island...
Yes.
And possibly enticing me in a ladylike way...
Yes.
Into the bedroom... And then I could sign a waiver that said if I did whatever they asked me to in the bedroom, then I would possibly vote for them.
Indeed.
Do you not believe that?
It sounds like a Green Party policy. What are you doing on Christmas Island, Sam?
I try and work very hard to pay my tax dollars, so they are wasted by the government.
Well, they're not exactly wasted. Keep in mind.
Not by this government.
Keep in mind there is a swimming pool at a private school in Melbourne that your taxes have bought. Now, put that into perspective.
I've seen photos of it, and it is lovely, but the only trouble is it's only swum in by private school boys who all turn up.
Yes, Sam, the other thing that your dollars are doing, I will let you know, is they are paying to inform you about changes that John Howard has made to work choices. Now, that is $45 million that otherwise could not have been spent were it not for hard-working people like you paying their taxes. And I applaud you on behalf of my family trust who doesn't pay tax. I applaud you for doing that. So thank you for joining us tonight, Sam.
And even if, more frighteningly, if a Labor government did come in, then Christmas Island would be no more.
Yes.
Because the political correctness, nanny state.
Yes.
No more Christmas.
No more Christmas,
no,
yes.
It'll be an all-denominational island.
Yes.
That won't be accepted.
Yes, it would be Ramadan Island as an act of appeasement to the Muslim community in Australia, which currently stands at about 90%.
So enjoy it while you can, Sam.
Yes.
Thank you for your call.
David from Maryborough.
Good evening, Stirling.
David, there are many Maryboroughs in Australia. Which one do you come from?
From the one that's actually not that far from Gympie.
Gympie?
Gympie.
In Queensland?
In Queensland.
Yes. David, what did you want to talk about tonight?
I wanted to talk about... Now, it's funny that you should mention denominations a moment ago.
Yes.
Yeah, but I was thinking about the difference between Anglican and Catholic priests.
Yes.
Now, Anglican priests are often enough, they're free to be married.
They are free to be married, yes.
Right, yeah.
Now, whereas Catholic priests are not.
No.
Now, what this means is that Catholic priests have the complete freedom from family duties to be fathers to their entire parish.
Yes.
Now, I thought a few years ago of another red-headed lady in politics
Yes.
who wrapped herself in a flag and said how she would be the mother of all Australians.
This is Pauline Hanson. Let's not take a black armband view of Pauline.
No,
it's before her time.
No, stay with me.
You'll have to be quick, David, because we only have about a minute left of the show.
Yeah, they're breathing down our neck, the atheists.
Yes.
Sound lab time.
Because you're talking the truth, you're being wound up here.
Yeah, if Pauline is an Anglican priest, then Julia is a Catholic priest.
Well said. Well said.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Keep the faith, boys.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
From Maryborough in Queensland, near Gympie. On that note, we will leave. Thank you, Spencer, so much for joining us again.
Thank you once again, Stirling. Always a pleasure.
We will be back. The gag has not been lifted. Safran is back, God knows when. As I have said, he will not return to this time slot until he bows his knee to Christianity and reconverts, or converts to Christianity.
One can only hope.
Who knows when that will be. We will be back next week, restoring the balance on Triple J. Thank you for joining us.
Triple J.